When discussing where some of rap's greatest talents land on hip-hop's hierarchy, we're usually discussing catalogs. While followers of the channel are all too familiar with our stance on rankings, today we're looking at mixtapes too. Yes, to make it on this list, a rapper would need to have both a classic mixtape and album on their resumes. What do we consider a classic? As far as albums go, we need to see a mixture of quality, impact, and longevity. So nothing gets our stamp of approval if it dropped less than 5 years ago. So, you've heard us mention the classic zone, get ready for a classic list. Here are a couple of artists with a classic album and mixtape under their belt. A$AP Rocky. Pretty Flacko, born Rakim Myers, has been one of hip-hop's most unpredictable stars, as well as one of its most underrated. Rocky envisioned H-Town's chopped and screwed sound through a Harlem lens, being both inspired and innovative in ways we haven't seen from an artist since. Keep in mind, it's becoming a running gag to confuse Rocky and Travis Scott. While one might have shook the scene earlier, the other was native to the original sound. Just food for thought. Garnering critical acclaim and running up streams like Squid Games, Rocky's only mixtape would top a lot of year-end lists before the ball dropped. This is the quintessential one and done. Joints like Peso, Purple Swag, and Keep It G fueled Myers' Harlem renaissance in the early 2010s. While his debut, Long Live A$AP, holds a special place in our hearts, we've got to tip our hats to At Long Last A$AP. The visuals around the project, his blend of genres, the rollout of the album. Rocky's sophomore slump was more like a magnum opus. Holy Ghost, LSD, Lord Pretty Flacko Jody 2, these are the keys to passing a Culturalist Theory ear test. The supporting cast, with no exaggeration, is iconic. Kanye before the red hat, Rod and Miguel on Every Day. The story of Rocky working with Joe Fox is crazy, but we still haven't mentioned Wayne on M's. Looking at Rocky's production between 2011 and 2015, it's a shame he's no longer in those top 5 discussions. We think the lukewarm reception testing received threw Flacko for a loop. We're just excited to see what New York's Golden Boy has been cooking up for his newest release. Let us know down in the comments what your expectations are for his upcoming joint. Big Sean. When your career surpasses the decade mark, its accompanying legacy is usually determined by that point, if not already set in stone. One thing Sean has taught us is that he's far from orthodox. From his dominant 5-year stretch spanning 2012 to 2017, to Kanye claiming the Good Music Prodigy signing was the biggest mistake of his career. The Detroit poster boy has had more ups and downs than Dre 6'4". His first 3 Finally Famous mixtapes had their moments, but they just hinted at glimpses of potential, not perennial superstar status. Then he dropped his debut album, Finally Famous, which only confirmed our suspicions of a fleeting career. But let us be the ones to remind you, Detroit hit a stratosphere of success and impact that 95% of the industry can't comprehend. Features from upcoming competition like J. Cole, Kendrick, and Wale, this tape had all the makings of an iconic project. Got to give our props to Key Wayne, who understood Sean's strengths and allowed him to capitalize on that momentum. His real magnum opus, however, wouldn't drop for another 3 years. 2015's Dark Sky Paradise had the game in a chokehold, and deservedly so. The 12-track LP would spawn 5 singles, almost always a good sign. #1 debut on the Billboard 200, check. Highest first week sales to date, check. Features from Wayne, Drizzy, Kanye, and Janae, 1 check, 2 checks, 3 checks, you dig? The hit making, songwriting, elite delivery, and storytelling are all accounted for, so why hasn't he repeated this formula? If we were making sports analogies, who would you compare Sean to? The first name that came to mind for us was Paul George. Both consistently performed at a high level, had relatively detrimental setbacks that would have discouraged lesser talents, and they both sit somewhere between overhated and underrated. Let us know down in the comments. Big K.R.I.T. King remembered in time, K.R.I.T, born Justin Scott, deserves a special shout out. We believe Scott is one of few artists in recent memory to prioritize their fan base. What do we mean by that? K.R.I.T put out 5 studio albums with some high quality records, but he undoubtedly thrives on the mixtape side. With 14 of them under his belt, yeah, you heard right, 14 of them, there's only a handful of premier caliber rappers who have been more prolific and whom none are on this list. Calling them mixtapes is a little misleading though. Joints like K.R.I.T Was Here, Return to Forever, Forever and a Day, and It's Better This Way would be more amply described as free albums. But that's the point of this list, highlighting the complexities that come with these catalogs. Honestly, a 30-minute video wouldn't do his mixtape run justice, and we still got one of the best double albums in the genre's history to touch on. Need new playlist material? Tap in with songs like 2000 and Beyond, Time Machine, Forever and a Day, Shine On, and Vanilla Sky. Now you ready for the best part? K.R.I.T is holding it down on both ends, producing the majority of everything he raps over. I know it sounds too good to be true, but I promise we're not making this up. If you heard his tapes in the past, how many would you call classic? Because from where we're standing, the M.I. Crooked Letter native got at least 4 classic tapes, 5 if you really want to get into it. Oh, that's right, we ain't even told you about the album yet. Forever Is a Mighty Long Time was the classic that fans were looking for from K.R.I.T. Even we had to spin the bin on this one. Conceptually, the album is split between K.R.I.T's dual personalities, Big K.R.I.T on the main side, while Justin Scott is on the B side. Despite it being a double disc, the project is pretty trim with few reasons to hit the skip button. We know in today's era of oversaturation and short-lived shelf lives that it's easy to overdo it with a hyperbole, but since when has someone done so much for a region and got such little recognition? Drake. Given the keys to the game seemingly out the gate, Canada's prodigal son did a lot of work behind the scenes before becoming a household name. Sharing the stage with Tunechi, Kanye, and M before his debut even dropped, Drake reminded listeners So Far Gone spawned a global tour and nearly earned him Grammys for Best Rap Song and Solo Performance. Impact? Yep. Best I Ever Had, Successful, I'm Going In. Equality? That's there too. We could also throw If You're Reading This in the discussion, but that project marked Drake's shaky streak of releasing albums without calling them albums. So we still don't know the distinction between a commercial mixtape and an album, but we digress. For years there has been a conversation around whether or not Drake has a certified classic. He does. The real question is how many of these albums can we give the green light to? Off rip, Take Care, nothing were the same. They don't need further explanation. But 2016's views, Impact doesn't really get any bigger than One Dance and Controller. Not only did the former snag Drizzy's first solo chart topper, but it set the stage for the global embrace of dancehall and Afro beats. Conceptually, it's easily Drake's best record. Add So Far Gone and you have a handful of projects straight of immense impact and unparalleled quality. Nipsey Hussle. Neighborhood Nip cut his teeth on the mixtape circuit like no other. Starting off slow but steady with Slauson Boy and the Bullets Ain't Got No Name trilogy, Hussle Man would really start making waves around the release of the Marathon. The Marathon and the Marathon Continues would ultimately be one of the most crucial building blocks in the larger-than-life legacy he would leave behind. While both joints got some material you need to check out, they aren't the projects that got him on this list. Crenshaw might be the only mixtape to demonstrate both an artist's impact and skill while serving as a masterclass on business acumen. This man sold 1,000 copies of a $100 mixtape that had already hit mixtape servers the day prior. We think it's safe to say that that's the kind of rollout that elevates a classic project to iconic status. No, not just because of the rollout, but the material the project encompassed. Check Me Out, All Get Right, and the seething 12-minute outro Crenshaw and Slauson were Nip's ways of ensuring his investors were pleased with their purchases. Production was clean, the structure was crisp, and the payoff, no exaggeration, bordered on MCU levels of build-up. Don't believe us? Start with the Marathon and make your way up to Victory Lap. Joints like Status Symbol 3, Keys to the City 2, and Blue Laces 2 will hit that much harder. You know what? Since I love y'all so much, I'm gonna put y'all on some game. This is something new and old Nip fans can equally enjoy, by the way. Go to that YouTube search bar and type in Blue Laces 2 alternate extended intro. Hey, don't say we ain't never done nothing for you. Wale. The DMV's go-to summer anthem king doesn't get the flowers he deserves. Hence the need for a Culturalist Theory channel to begin with. We're pretty confident in the 3 classic mixtapes we'll attribute to the former MMG headliner. Summer on Sunset is one of the more underrated tapes you'll come across from an artist of Wale's stature to no fault of his own. Teaming up with West Coast artists Ty Dolla $ign, Eric Bellinger, and the Dog Pound, Folarin transports audiences to LA, palm trees not included. Joints like Valentino, It's Too Late, and Miss Moon almost make us feel like Wale was born on the wrong coast. Anytime he says he's talking about nothing, trust and believe he's probably about to rap the dictionary to you, Chocolate City style. His Seinfeld-inspired mixtape About Nothing would not only show us one of the more arbitrary crossovers between hip-hop and pop culture, it'd be a gold mine for the poetic MC to tap into throughout the decade. The project was a bit of an acquired taste as we needed a couple of listens to fully appreciate it, but More About Nothing was a walk-off grand slam. Yeah, we watched baseball too. The MC, the breakup song, the manipulation too, we don't know what else to tell you. If a mixtape that doubles as a season of certified classic television doesn't interest you,
what? Well, I'm out, man. That nigga's tripping.
But for real though, the project that even made us consider his eligibility for this list was 2015's The Album About Nothing. Our pick for one of the more underrated albums to come out of the decade, Wale's magnum opus puts it all on the table. Now don't get us wrong, he continually proved throughout his career that he wasn't capable of dropping a bad album, but we also felt like his other material was just a tier short of classic. Album About Nothing undoubtedly cleared that threshold. J. Cole, Jeremiah, Usher, and SZA would all come through with memorable features, even though we really wanted a verse from Jermaine. But the real gem on the project was Wale's vision and consistency meeting in the middle. He touches on everything from marriage and materialism to drug addiction and depression. Let us know in the comments, what's your favorite Wale mixtape? Future. Whether you're looking for historic mixtape runs or high quality album output, Future Hendrix is the artist for you. Formerly a second generation Dungeon family member, Future's earlier works highlight his underground influences in ways many people outside the 943, that still doesn't sound right, might not be keen to. With 20 mixtapes and 9 studio albums, there isn't enough time in this video to touch on all of his projects, so we'll cut to the chase. Back in October 2014, Future put his trust in Metro Boomin and never looked back. Monster would jumpstart a trilogy of album quality mixtapes that hasn't been topped since. Beast Mode with Zaytoven would drop in January of 2015, with 56 Nights following just 2 months after that. But none of these releases could prepare listeners for the onslaught that would be DS2. Future's third studio LP, which dropped in 2015, will be a treasure trove of bangers, album cuts, and summer anthems that can still be seen and heard in present-day trap. Joints like Thought It Was a Drought, Stick Talk, Rich Sex, and Free Co immortalized Hendrix and set the stage for his artistry to be appreciated on a deeper level. Between October 2014 and January 2016, Future dropped 4 mixtapes and a studio album that undoubtedly earned the CT stamp of approval. Maybe it's the consistency, maybe it's his prolific nature, but it seems like Future had one of the most underappreciated decades in rap. We'd like to think we're being fair with these appraisals, but let us know down in the comments, what's it take for you to call a project classic? J. Cole. J. Cole spent the better part of a decade developing his following through timeless studio releases. Before Born Sinner and Forest Hills Drive, there was the warm-up and Friday Night Lights. Is there a point in an artist's career where their releases are classic or bust? If so, when would we be able to determine that? Say after they drop their first classic? Or perhaps after they reach superstardom? If it's the former, then we'd have to say Cole reached that mark after dropping the warm-up. If it's the latter, then it would be Born Sinner. We won't count Sideline Story, as placing those kinds of expectations on a debut is almost never justified. But if we omit what Cole himself has attributed to industry politics and label pressures, Cole went nearly a decade dropping all classic level material. Warm Up, Friday Night Lights, 2014 Forest Hills Drive. I mean, that's universally accepted, right? We understand the criticisms thrown at For Your Eyes Only, and we'll save that deep dive for his album ranking, which we are working on. Opinions varied with KOD as well as the off-season, and we'll have to see what this fall off does, but still, 2 mixtapes and 3 albums ain't bad from a kid out the Ville. Still, 2 classic mixtapes and 1, possibly 2 classic albums ain't bad from a kid out the Ville. Migos. By far the most unique artist on this list, the trio from North Atlanta hit the streets harder than just about everyone on this list. We admit, when they first dropped YRN, we didn't know it was 3 different artists, but that's how fresh that triplet flow was. It wouldn't be long before Quavo, Offset, and Takeoff had us rapping Versace, Hannah Montana, and Chinatown word for word. When they had Drake hop on the Versace remix, that's when we knew the group wasn't going anywhere. The Relatives would release several collab and compilation mixtapes before gifting fans No Label 2. Everyone remembers Fight Night, Handsome and Wealthy, and Freak No More, but cuts like Contraband, YRH, and First 48 usually get lost in the mix. The way those singles were hitting, this definitely could have been a debut album. Nevertheless, they'd come back stronger than ever with their Culture trilogy. The jury's still out on the 3rd installment, but those first 2 definitely cemented the group's legacy. Those albums quite literally embodied a space in hip-hop that will forever be remembered through songs like Bad and Bougie, T-Shirt, Slippery, and Out Your Way. Staying true to the criteria we set for everything else, we can't deny the impact, quality, or longevity on the majority of these albums. Rick Ross. If the MMG mogul was playing classic spades, he'd definitely have 3 and a possible in his hand. We argue that he wouldn't start scratching classic status until his 3rd LP, Deeper Than Rap. That's the possible we mention, as this one seems to occupy a confusing space in his catalog. Some fans claim it's his best, while others argue it falls just short of the criteria needed to have its vinyl jacket in the rafters. We tend to agree with the latter. So if this doesn't make classic status, what does, you might be asking? Well, let's see. Are we talking most impactful project? that would have to be Teflon Don. To those who weren't tuned into the radio back in 2010, just take our word for it. Rose was arguably the biggest name in the industry. Compiling classics like Freemason, Maybach Music 3, and Live Fast, Die Young is an easy way to check off the quality markers. Did we forget to mention two of his biggest hits? Yep, BMF and Aston Martin Music both grace this track list. Certified classic. Now, touching on his most well-rounded project today, 2012's God Forgives I Don't sees the rapper at the crossroads of his critical and commercial success. Unlike most of the artists on this list, Ross's mixtape run started several years after he achieved mainstream success. Rich Forever would precede 2012's God Forgives, dropping in January of that year. Now, on that joint right there, disappointment was not on the menu. Heaters like Holy Ghost, Fuck 'Em, and Keys to the Crib had fans checking their bank statements to make sure they didn't accidentally buy the album of the year. The title track is our most likely pick for best record off the project, while casual listeners may be none the wiser that the platinum selling Stay Schemin' also came off of it. Okay, theorists, that's a riz out. If you want to see another installment of this series, cause yes, there are more rappers that have a classic album and mixtape, we need at least 100 likes per artist on this list, minimum. Who should we cover in the next joint? Comment down below, and please don't all say Lil Wayne at once. It's your man CJ Williams signing out. Peace.